Hello, Aquarius. Welcome to Gemini season. This is a reading for your Aquarius placement, Sun, Moon, Rising, or any other planets you might have in Aquarius over the course of Gemini season, May 20th through June 20th. Gemini is your fellow air sign, so this is a supportive season for you. Gemini holds the solar fifth house in the Aquarius charts, and this is one of the grooviest places in the chart to hang out in. The fifth house is a place of fun, of romance, of hobbies, of sports, of self-expression and self-actualization. And so over the course of Gemini season, the sun will be here. The personal planets, Venus and Mercury, will come into Gemini. And then we also have the entry of Jupiter into Gemini, and Jupiter will be here for the next year, all the way until June of 2025. So this is a big boost for your energy. And I think a lot of you are really going to appreciate this, especially over the course of the last year. Jupiter in your fellow fixed sign, Taurus. Ultimately, I'm hoping has been a supportive kind of influence for you, but a square to your sign is different than a trine to your sign, and air speaks to air, whereas earth and air go in really different directions. So Jupiter coming into Gemini is definitely a boost. It is a boon. Over the course of this season and over the course of the next year, you are really supported to focus on your creative energy. Now, we are all creative beings. We are part of creation. Life is creative. The world is creative. Earth is abundantly creative. If you want inspiration for creativity, go outside. Try and get to somewhere where human interference has been minimal and be in awe for a minute around the Earth's creativity. Notice the shapes of leaves. Notice how Earth grows not in straight lines, but in an infinite amount of other shapes. Notice how clouds transform as they float through the sky. Notice how sediment breaks down, how minerals transform and reform into different colors, into different shapes, into different sizes. Seek to emulate the creativity of Earth right now. And when I say that, what I mean is go with the flow. This is a really good time for you to get curious about who you are becoming and what and who around you is influencing your becoming. This is a great time to let go of ideas about who you're going to be that are rooted in who you used to be, because those ideas may or may not come to fruition. And I'm guessing that a lot of you right now are really feeling that you are not the same person that you used to be, and you're not the person who the old you thought you were going to be. I think a lot of you are feeling yourself wanting things and moving towards things that are maybe even kind of surprising for you. And I think a lot of you are getting a big dose of life, and life is unpredictable as hell. And it will give you all kinds of creative challenges. You think you're going to make a landscape painting, and then life comes along and it is like, sorry, bitch, it's going to be abstract. Like it might not look the way that you thought it was going to look. So this is a period of time where I'm going to say there's a lot of necessary fragmentation. And if things are falling apart or not forming in the way that you thought that they were going to be, there are still opportunities to be creative. And chaos is a highly creative place. Chaos is the mother of invention, so they say, right? Like the birthplace of creativity. And the best way to meet this energy is to disrupt binary thinking. So it's not an either or. If it's not the thing that you thought it was going to be, guess what? It's going to be something else. Um, don't try to force yourself or anybody else into boxes right now. You really want to uh, go with the flow and meet life as it meets you. The first week or so of Gemini season, we have a big full moon in Sagittarius. I'm saying big full moon because this full moon coincides with a bunch of other events, including Venus's entry into Gemini, and Jupiter will enter this sign a couple of days later. So this full moon is amplifying an axis of opportunity in your chart. This is actually one of the luckiest polarities in an astrology chart, the 5th and the 11th house. This is a full moon that is opening up some doors for you. It is asking you, where do you want to go and how do you want to grow? But again, don't get too formalized right now. Don't get too stuck on particular ideas of what something is going to look like. Let what is happening inspire you to envision or imagine what could happen. And in the in the vein of how do you want to grow and where do you want to go right now, I really want to invite you to tap into or tune into the energetic wisdom of your inner child. Maybe some of you might have children, or you might have teachers who are short and young. They're great teachers. But child energy is very much an energetic pattern of the 5th house. And child energy is learning energy, right? It's curious energy, it's spontaneous energy, it's playful energy. And one really cool thing that kids can teach us is how to go with the flow. Because when you're little and short, yes, you have your preferences. For sure, people have strong preferences. And when they're young, same, right? Sometimes even stronger. Like sometimes as we get older, we learn to like temper our preferences a little bit. But one thing about kids that's so cool is that they haven't solidified their minds around stories that they're telling themselves about why things are the way that they are. They're just asking the questions, and they're really interested in the possible answers. And the question why and what if are often jumping off points for imagination. And I think that this is a great place for you to be right now. Like, well, why is it like that? And especially if it comes to any kind of fixed ideas or assumptions that you have about where you need to go or how you need to grow, I think it will serve you well to take a pause and ask yourself, why? Why do I need to do that? Why do I need to grow like that? And consider whether or not there might actually be viable options and alternatives that you could play with, like play around with, just like a kid, just like your inner child might play pretend and imagine various different possibilities. As we get through the month of May, the sense of possibility for you, I think, is really important, but also you are, in some ways, not all of you are limited. Some of you, I think, are supported, but all of you probably are trying to figure out resource-wise, like, how can you do it? Um, Now, we live in a time of high instability, and I don't know who I'm reading for, other than you might be Aquarius identified. And so out of all the Aquarius identified people, there's an enormous spectrum of how well resourced somebody might be, or how much they might feel shaky or unresourced. So what I want to say is that how you resource your growth right now, how you resource your next steps when you're thinking about how do you want to grow and why, and well, what could you do, and things like that. Um, it's tempting for a lot of you, I think, to make it about money. And probably to some extent, for some of you, it has to be, right? Like there have to be financial considerations and concerns. Um, but I do want to say that it's not only about money. And there are a lot of other resources that you want to be opening your mind to as well. And a big resource that I think you want to be opening your mind to um, is other people, and the idea of some kind of community, or collective, or group, or family. Um, you don't want to be working alone right now, Aquarius. You really want to find the right people, the right places, and the right networks to be working with. And so it's really important for you at this time that you are not isolating yourself in your fantasies or in your plans about what it is that you are trying to do. And I want to say that it's really important that you are finding people to work with and to create with who want to do things differently. And I feel like a lot of you really want to shake your life up. And that is it's such a strong feeling as we get into Gemini season. And I think throughout the season, this is a super strong feeling. And the end of May, it's like a lot of you you're like itching, you're rumbling, you're trying to figure out how to do a new thing. And one way that we all can do new things that totally surprise us, that are innovative, that are creative, that are different, is we can work with other people. Because what happens in collaboration is that we get to places that we would never get by ourselves. And sometimes it's super frustrating and annoying to work with other people, and it can feel like, we have really different ideas about what we want or whatever. But that could also be really healthy, dynamic friction and tension. So consider who is enough on your wavelength, who has enough shared values and priorities that you can imagine collaborating with them, and then see where you can get. And I would highly recommend that, especially, well, at any phase of development, it doesn't have to be if you're just starting. Um, Take a playful approach. Like do things about what you're trying to do, about your planning, about your strategy or something that is creative first, that's playful first. That might mean that you just like put on some music and like dance for a little bit before you start your meeting. It might mean that instead of sitting and talking or looking at computers, you draw. It might mean that you are like making little replica models or something like that. It might mean that you are actually having meetings with kids who are valuable and important members of, the group. And like you're actually taking their ideas seriously, which personally, I think the world would be much better off if like we had, you know, a good representation of people under the age of 20 um, whose voices were considered, when policies were being made or things like that. All right, so I do want to recommend a couple of opportunities for you to work creatively with astrology. And I think astrology is such an amazing practice. It is so creative. It really works in the symbolic realm, in the symbolic field. And it gets parts of our brains going and gets mapping happening that I personally don't really find happening otherwise. So the end of June, we have a cycle of classes starting. It's a devotional cycle with Sherry Taylor. Sherry is a death psychologist, a death doula. She is a highly creative person and a really amazing researcher of mythology and archetype. And she's been working with Saturn in Pisces over the last couple of years. And she's offering a three-part devotional cycle beginning in the end of June that is about planetary allyship and really tuning in with the archetypal energy of Saturn in Pisces. Now, I think that this energy can really support you right now because those of you who are trying to figure out how to resource what you're doing, you really want to resource in something that's bigger than you, and you want to resource in ways that are feeling aligned for you spiritually and ethically. And that's what this work is all about. It's tuning in ways that allow us to listen to our uh, intuition and kind of like deep spiritual knowing. And I think that this is really important for you right now because you are trying to grow something, you're trying to get somewhere, you're trying to do something. But if you come at it from your mind and from your ego, and you're not enough in both your creative intelligence and your spiritual intelligence, whatever you're making, it won't serve you, you know, it won't really give you the energy that you are wanting from it. Now, the other offering that we have going on is also working with Pisces. Now, I'm circling the mouse around Pisces, and Pisces is an important place for you right now, Aquarius, in the solar chart, because Pisces in the second place holds the place of your possessions. It holds the place of your value, your money, your priorities, your preferences. And if you're trying to do anything right now, this is the place that is like, this is the funds. So Neptune is at the very last degree of Pisces this year. This is called the anaretic degree. And actually in the beginning of 2026, Saturn and Neptune will form a conjunction at the very first degree of Aries. Now you are working towards a new idea of who you could be. And this is very palpable all through this year, but definitely in Gemini season. There's this feeling of like, okay, where am I going? How am I going to shake it up? How am I going to do this thing that I want to do? And so we have GABS 404 facilitating a space at Embodied Astrology called the Nebula Lab. And this is a space that is working through explorations of photography, looking at how reality is made and unmade, and considering Neptune's significance in Pisces right now as a period of time when unreality is really pervasive. It's like a lot of us are like, what is real, you know? And what is real kind of depends on who you're asking these days. But I would also say that this is a very potent and fertile time for imagination because a lot of things are breaking down, and what used to be real is not real anymore. And this is true when it comes to you and your identity and some of your plans. And this is also true when it comes to the way that resources are working and how resources will work. Money is not the only resource, and how we get money is changing, and the ways that resource is shared and thought of is changing rapidly. And the more of us that can engage this work of changing values, changing resources from a creative and spiritual place, I think the more abundant our futures will be. So, for those of you that would like a little bit of communal support and inspiration for thinking about resource, thinking about growing your projects, thinking about working in ways that are spiritually significant and in alignment with your higher self and inner wisdom, definitely check out those offerings. All right, getting into the month of June. So June, right from jump, has a kind of accelerating, rapid feeling energy to it. And from the beginning, I think that there's a kind of like high level of um, sympathetic nervous system stimulation just circulating through the atmosphere. Um, people are like going through it. I mean, it's a wild time to be alive on planet Earth, and I'm recording for you from the past. It's still April, and I don't know what's going to be happening at this point, but I think that it feels like a very revolutionary time. Um, and revolution is crazy, right? Like the energy of revolution is also the energy of insanity. Like people get gripped and it's a time of imperatives. It's a time of ultimatums. It's a time of things toppling. It's a time of a lot of creative energy, but a lot of also really um sometimes violent, it's been a violent like past millennium. Uh, so that's not new, but we are living at a time of just a lot of fragmentation in collective consciousness. So the first thing that I want to say is pay attention to what you're paying attention to, especially as we get into the month of June. You are a creative being. You have a lot of creative energy. What you create has a lot to do with what you're paying attention to and what your mind is doing and what your kind of like energy body is doing. So if you're paying attention to the, headlines that you're getting from mass media every day, and you're not paying attention to the ways that flowers are still managing to sprout from in between, the cracks in the sidewalk, then what you're paying attention to is the madness of the human condition and not actually the creativity of the earth. And I want you paying attention to the creativity of earth. And I don't want you bypassing, like, I don't want you putting your head in the sand and pretending like the madness of the human condition isn't happening, but I also don't want you gorging on it. And some of you can get really like hungry for news and hungry for information and hungry to stimulate your mind. And if you are feeling that, then I definitely want to ask you to make sure that you are balancing whatever you're consuming on like a media level with the types of information and the types of experience that remind you of abundance and that remind you of goodness and remind you of beauty. And this is a great time for you to be focusing on what you love and what you love to do and how you can bring your biggest gifts right now. So the fifth house, and especially Jupiter in your fifth house, is a great opportunity for you to emanate and resonate in the world in ways that are highly generous and that are deeply creative and very soulful. And when you focus on what your gifts are and what your passions are, then we have you working your creativity in ways that can contribute to um, making a world that's not as nutso as it is. We are living in a time of profound creativity, right? Chaos and creativity go together hand in hand. The last 2 weeks or so of Gemini season, from the Gemini new moon on June 6th through the solstice on the 21st of June, are a period of time where I feel like a lot of you are really focused on the practicalities of how you want to do what you want to do. So, the new moon, first of all, on the 6th is a great time for you to be manifesting. This is a time of planting seeds of inspiration and hope. This is a really good time for beginning new creative projects. And remember that beginnings happen in the dark. When you plant a seed, the seed goes underground until it sprouts, but it's underground for a long time. Um, and you just have to kind of like be there tending it, believing that it's going to sprout someday. So when I'm saying like manifesting, I'm not talking about, oh my God, it's going to just spill out everywhere, all over the place on the new moon. I'm talking about setting your intentions and really thinking about, again, what kind of world are you trying to grow into? Um, Now, the rest of Gemini season, I think a lot of you are really, you're really thinking about how do you make it work. Um, Resources are definitely taking up a lot of your attention and focus. This definitely includes money. It also includes time, energy, capacity, all other kinds of material resources. A lot of you have issues going on around home and like foundation, and it feels like stability. And so during this time, I think you have to focus on these things. It's really important. You're needing to work it out. And I'm going to say that be mindful of when you get into binary mindsets. So if you're like, it has to happen this way, and you get yourself into a stress case because it's not happening that way, but just because it's not happening that way, you think it's not going to happen, that's a waste of your time and energy. Get up, put on a put on your favorite song, dance. Okay, like get creative, move in different ways. Like if you're feeling stuck, if you don't know how something is going to work, if you're feeling frustrated, if you're consumed by scarcity, if you're fearful, do something that gets your creative energy moving and gets you to like shake it out a little bit and do something different and then come back to it. And you're going to have a different perspective. It's super important for you right now that you don't let yourself get stuck in binaries or like either or situations, okay? Same thing. Um and then as we finish up Gemini season and as we move into Cancer season, uh y- you guys you're working. Like you want to do something, and I don't know what it is that you want to do, or you feel compelled, you feel like you need to do something, you're wanting to make a move, you're wanting to up level, you're wanting to survive, you're wanting to survive and thrive, right? Like a lot of you, I think, are really driven, and you might be driven by longing or necessity right now, but either way, this is a time that is asking you to bring your energy to the table, and what I'm asking you to do is bring your evolution to the table. So, yes, this is a time to focus. Yes, this is a time to apply yourself. Yes, this is a time to invest in the growth that you want to be gearing yourself towards. But this is also a time when you are changing remarkably and you need to let yourself change. And when we feel, or a lot of us, when we feel like the pressure is on, we will revert to our training. Like we're very habitual beings. And so we will revert to where it's easiest, to where we've done it a million times before. We're going to fall back into old habits. We're going to pick up the same addictions. We're just going to reach for what we know. And I don't want you doing that right now. I want you making different choices. I want you expanding your options. I want you thinking about what have you not considered yet. So turn on the music and start dancing and check out some of Embodied Astrology's offerings. One thing that I didn't say is we have full moon artistic alchemy offerings every single month. We have one around the full moon on the 23rd of May. I think that one is a bit of a different time than usual. Didn't write it down for you, but it's going to be in the show notes. And then we also have one um, on the 23rd of June for the Capricorn full moon. And these artistic alchemy offerings with Janata Petrus are wonderful times to just come and be in community, to be with groups of people who are really, not going to put pressure on you to be an all-star artist. They are going to just give you love, give you encouragement, and have a great conversation around how to nourish and support creative energy in our lives as we're trying to survive, as we're trying to figure out how we're going to figure out whatever the next step is. And bring in a little dose of poetry, do a little prompt where you're turning something upside down on its head and thinking about it in a new and different way. So, Embodied Astrology has all kinds of goodness for you to get creative over the course of Gemini season and beyond. I really hope to see you in some of those spaces, Aquarius. I'm rooting for you. You've got this. I know that. I know that you do. Wishing you all the best in Gemini season and beyond. Bye for now.